The whispers started like a low hum, a persistent drone that followed Alara through the village streets. Barren, they hissed, the word laced with venom and pity, a brand seared onto her very being. The women, gathered at the well or clustered outside the bakery, would fall silent as she passed, their eyes following her with a cruel curiosity. They spoke of her misfortune, her perceived failure as a woman, a werewolf unable to fulfill her most basic duty, to bear children for the pack. Their laughter, sharp and dismissive, echoed in her ears long after she had hurried past. Alara knew what they said, how they questioned her worth, how they saw her as less than, a burden on the community. Their words were like stones, thrown with casual cruelty, each one chipping away at her spirit. To them, she was incomplete, a broken vessel, a disappointment. Alara was known for her gentle nature, her quick smile, and her willingness to lend a hand to anyone in need. She had always possessed a quiet strength, a resilience that had seen her through hardship. Her hair, the color of spun moonlight, cascaded down her back, framing a face that, despite its current sorrow, held a delicate beauty. But beneath the surface, a deep longing gnawed at her, a desperate desire for a child to call her own. The ache in her heart was a constant companion, a dull throb that intensified with each passing day. She yearned to experience the joy of motherhood, to nurture and protect a new life, to contribute to the future of her pack. The doctor's words had been delivered with a chilling detachment, a pronouncement that shattered her dreams. He had arrived at her small cottage, his face grim, his manner perfunctory. "There is no hope, Alara," he had said, his voice devoid of empathy. "Your womb is barren. You will never bear children." He cited her weak bloodline, a whispered accusation that had haunted her since childhood. Her mother had been an outsider, a human, and though her father was a respected werewolf, the taint of human blood, according to the doctor, had rendered her infertile. He left as abruptly as he had arrived, leaving Alara alone with the weight of his devastating judgment. The initial shock gave way to a profound despair. Alara retreated into herself, isolating herself from the world. She could no longer bear the pitying glances, the hushed whispers, the barely concealed scorn. The village, once a place of comfort and belonging, now felt like a hostile landscape, filled with judgmental eyes and cruel whispers. She spent her days wandering the forest, seeking solace in the ancient trees and the whispering wind, but even nature could not fully ease her pain. Unbeknownst to Alara, she was being watched. From the shadows, Kale, the alpha heir, observed her with a growing intrigue. He saw beyond the villagers' cruel judgments, beyond the doctor's cold pronouncement. He saw a woman of strength, kindness, and unwavering spirit, a woman who possessed a quiet dignity that captivated him. He sensed a deeper connection, a hidden strength that defied the pack's narrow definition of worthiness. The reasons for his fascination were still unclear, but he knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within his soul, that Alara was more than what she seemed. As the moon bathed the forest in its silvery light, Alara knelt beneath an ancient oak, her heart filled with a desperate plea. "Moon goddess," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion, "I know it seems impossible, but I beg you, grant me a child. Give me a chance to prove my worth, to fulfill my purpose." Her words were carried on the wind, a fragile hope whispered into the vast expanse of the night. Even if it seemed a delusion, it was all she had left. Kale, the alpha heir, was a figure carved from granite and moonlight. His presence commanded respect, his every word carried the weight of generations. He was the embodiment of strength, the promise of the pack's future. Yet, beneath the formidable exterior lay a profound loneliness. He yearned for connection, for a bond that transcended duty and expectation, a yearning he carefully concealed from the prying eyes of his advisors. His days were consumed by pack matters, settling disputes, strategizing for the future, and ensuring the safety of his people. Each decision was a calculated move, each interaction a carefully orchestrated performance. He was a leader, a protector, a symbol. But he was also a prisoner of his own lineage. The pressure to find a suitable mate weighed heavily on him. The elders constantly reminded him of his responsibility to produce strong offspring, heirs who would inherit his power and continue the pack's legacy. They paraded eligible she-wolves before him, each one possessing impeccable bloodlines and impressive skills. They spoke of strength, lineage, and strategic alliances, but their words echoed hollowly in Kale's ears. He saw ambition in their eyes, calculation in their smiles, but he found no spark of genuine connection. He was expected to choose a mate based on pedigree and potential, not on affection or compatibility. It was a political marriage disguised as a sacred bond. And then there was Alara. He had observed her from afar, a silent observer of her quiet strength. He saw her kindness towards the orphaned pups, her unwavering loyalty to her friends, and her resilience in the face of hardship. He saw her heart break when the doctor delivered his pronouncement, the way she retreated into herself, shielding herself from the world's cruel gaze. He saw her vulnerability, but he also saw her spirit, a flickering flame that refused to be extinguished. She was everything the elders deemed unsuitable: weak blood, barren womb, insignificant status. Yet, Cale found himself drawn to her, inexplicably captivated by her quiet grace. She challenged his preconceived notions of what made a worthy mate. She was not strong in the traditional sense, but she possessed a different kind of strength, a quiet fortitude that resonated deeply within him. His advisors scoffed at the mere suggestion of considering Alara as a potential mate. They reminded him of his duty, of the importance of securing the pack's future through a strong bloodline. They whispered of Alara's weakness, her inability to bear children, her lack of social standing. They painted her as a liability, a burden, an embarrassment to the pack. They urged him to focus on the eligible she-wolves from noble families, the ones who could guarantee strong offspring and political alliances. They were blind to the true strength that resided within Alara. Cale found himself torn between duty and desire. He understood the importance of securing the pack's future, but he couldn't ignore the inexplicable pull he felt towards Alara. He questioned the traditional definition of strength, the narrow-minded focus on bloodlines and physical prowess. He wondered if true strength lay in compassion, resilience, and unwavering loyalty. He knew that choosing Alara would be a defiant act, a challenge to the pack's traditions and expectations. It would be a risky move, one that could jeopardize his position and create conflict within the pack. But he couldn't shake the feeling that Alara was the key to something more, something that transcended duty and tradition. A secret decision took root within him, a decision to defy expectations and approach Alara, driven by an inexplicable pull towards her, a force he could no longer ignore. He would seek her out, not as the alpha heir, but as a man drawn to a woman whose quiet strength resonated with his very soul. Cale's presence was like a sudden storm brewing on the horizon, a dark cloud casting a shadow over Alara's already dimmed world. She was gathering herbs, a meager attempt to contribute to the pack despite her perceived failings, when she sensed him. Her heart leapt into her throat, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. The alpha heir, Cale, was not someone she ever expected to encounter, especially not in her solitude, amidst the whispering trees and rustling leaves that had become her only solace. Alara knew her place, or rather, what everyone perceived as her place: a barren woman, a disappointment to the pack, unworthy of attention, let alone the attention of the future alpha. He was the embodiment of strength and power, destined to lead, to produce strong offspring, the very things she was deemed incapable of providing. So, why was he here? Her hands trembled as she clutched the woven basket, the herbs spilling over the edges like unwanted tears. She willed herself to remain calm, to meet his gaze with some semblance of composure, but fear was a relentless tide, threatening to drown her in its depths. He moved with a grace that belied his imposing stature, a predator approaching its prey, though she sensed no malice, only an unsettling curiosity. "Alara," he said, his voice a low rumble that resonated through the forest, sending shivers down her spine. It was the first time he had spoken her name, and the sound of it on his lips felt both foreign and strangely intimate. She managed a curt nod, unable to find her voice, her throat constricted with anxiety. He stopped a few feet away, close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from his body, close enough to see the intensity in his eyes, an unsettling mixture of pity and something she couldn't quite decipher. "I've been watching you," he said, and her breath hitched in her chest. Had she imagined that she'd been watched? Why would he watch her, a shadow on the fringes of the pack? I don't understand," she stammered, finally finding her voice, though it was barely a whisper. "Why would you be watching me?" Cale's expression softened, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "I see strength in you, Alara," he said, his words a balm to her wounded soul, yet she couldn't bring herself to believe them. "A strength that goes beyond bearing children. A strength of character, of resilience. Something the pack seems to have overlooked." Doubt gnawed at her, a persistent ache in her heart. He must be mistaken. He must be seeing something that wasn't there. Or worse, he was toying with her, raising her hopes only to crush them. "Don't," she said, her voice laced with a hint of bitterness. "Don't pretend to see something that isn't there. I am what everyone says I am, barren, useless." He stepped closer, his eyes locking with hers, unwavering and intense. "I don't believe that," he said, his voice firm, resolute. "And I intend to prove it. I have a proposition for you, Alara. A chance to prove them all wrong, to show them, and yourself, what you are truly capable of." He paused, his gaze sweeping over her face, searching for something she couldn't name. "Are you willing to take that chance?" He left her with the words hanging in the air, the weight of their meaning pressing down on her. He turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving Alara alone with her doubts and a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? That was the question that echoed in her mind, louder than the whispering trees and the rustling leaves. The possibility that the Alpha Heir saw something of value in her was hard to believe, but the invitation to prove the doctor wrong was an offer Alara had to think about. 668 words. News of Kale's unprecedented interaction with Alara spread through the pack faster than a wildfire consuming dry brush. It was the kind of gossip that fueled whispered conversations in every corner of the village, from the marketplace to the training grounds. The rumors, however, were far from kind. They were laced with scorn and disbelief, painting Alara as an object of ridicule rather than admiration. How dare she, a woman declared Barren, even entertain the notion of catching the Alpha Heir's eye? The pack members, particularly the women, couldn't fathom Kale's interest. They saw it as a bizarre aberration, a temporary lapse in judgment on his part. Alara, who had already been struggling with her own feelings of inadequacy, now faced an even greater level of isolation and ridicule. The pitying glances she once received were replaced with open mockery and thinly veiled contempt. She became a pariah, an outcast who dared to dream beyond her station. The other women in the pack, especially those who had long considered themselves potential mates for Kale, were particularly cruel. They openly questioned her worth, pointing out her weak bloodline and her inability to bear children. They sneered at her appearance, finding fault in every feature, every garment. Alara became the target of their collective jealousy and insecurity. There were direct confrontations, whispered insults in the marketplace, and deliberate acts of exclusion, all designed to remind her of her perceived inferiority. Alara found herself shrinking under the weight of their animosity, longing for the solitude she had known before Kale's unexpected attention. Kale, however, was not oblivious to the pack's cruelty. He witnessed their harsh treatment of Alara and became even more resolute in his defiance of their expectations. He saw their prejudice and their narrow-mindedness, and it only strengthened his conviction that Alara was different, special. In a bold move, he publicly defended her, rebuking those who dared to speak ill of her in his presence. His actions, while intended to protect Alara, only served to further fuel the rumors and intensify the pack's disapproval. They saw his defense as an endorsement of Alara's presumptuousness, a clear sign that he was losing his grip on reason. Despite the hardship, something began to shift within Alara. Kale's unwavering belief in her, his public defense, gave her a glimmer of hope, a newfound sense of inner strength. She realized that she could not control the opinions of others, but she could control how she responded to them. She started to hold her head a little higher, to meet the mocking gazes with a quiet dignity. The pain was still there, the sting of rejection still sharp, but it was now accompanied by a growing sense of self-worth. She began to see herself not as the barren outcast the pack perceived her to be, but as a woman capable of resilience and strength. Driven by a desperate desire to prove herself, not just to the pack, but to herself, Alara decided to accept Kale's cryptic invitation. She would face whatever challenge he had in store for her, and she would do it with courage and determination. The road ahead would undoubtedly be difficult, filled with obstacles and prejudice, but she was no longer willing to cower in the shadows. She would step into the light, embrace her potential, and find her place in the pack, even if it meant defying every expectation they had of her. The whispers and scorn would continue, but they would no longer define her. 667 words. The nature of the trial Kale had conceived was unlike anything the pack had ever witnessed. It wasn't a simple display of brute strength or hunting prowess, the typical measures of worth in their society. Instead, it was a carefully curated series of challenges designed to assess strength of character, resilience of spirit, and an unwavering commitment to the well-being of others. It was a direct challenge to the pack's long-held beliefs about what truly made someone worthy. Alara knew she had to prepare, and she threw herself into training with a ferocity she never knew she possessed. Every sunrise found her pushing her physical limits, running through the dense forest, scaling treacherous cliffs, and honing her reflexes. She practiced hand-to-hand combat, learning to use her smaller size and agility to her advantage against larger, stronger opponents. But beyond the physical, Alara also delved into her inner self, confronting her fears and insecurities. Kale, under the cover of darkness, secretly aided her. He couldn't openly show favoritism, but he ensured she had access to the best training resources and offered subtle guidance, reminding her of her inherent strength and the unwavering belief he had in her. The pack, however, remained largely skeptical. They saw the trial as a ridiculous charade, a pointless exercise fueled by the Alpha Heir's inexplicable infatuation with a barren woman. They whispered amongst themselves, predicting Alara's inevitable failure and questioning Kale's judgment. The women who had once scorned her now watched with a mixture of anticipation and malice, eager to witness her humiliation. They considered it a waste of time, believing Alara was simply not worthy of the Alpha Heir's attention, and certainly not worthy of leading the pack. Despite the negativity swirling around her, Alara drew strength from Kale's unwavering support. He saw something in her that no one else did, a quiet strength, a fierce determination, and a deep well of compassion. He reminded her that the trial wasn't about proving herself to the pack, but about proving to herself that she was capable of anything she set her mind to. He encouraged her to embrace her unique qualities and to trust her instincts. His words were a balm to her wounded spirit, giving her the courage to face the challenges ahead. The first stage of the trial was a brutal test of physical endurance. It involved navigating a treacherous obstacle course designed to push participants to their absolute breaking point. Alara had to scale towering walls, crawl through muddy tunnels, and swing across deep ravines. The course was designed to exploit weaknesses, both physical and mental. Many of the pack members were built for raw power, but she had to use her knowledge and intellect to succeed. Each obstacle seemed insurmountable, each task more demanding than the last. Her muscles screamed in protest, her lungs burned, and her mind threatened to give way to despair. But with each step, she remembered Kale's words, and she pushed herself onward, fueled by a burning desire to prove herself and to silence the doubters. Finally, battered and bruised, Alara crossed the finish line, collapsing in exhaustion. A stunned silence fell over the pack. They had expected her to fail, to crumble under the pressure. But she hadn't. She had persevered, defying their expectations and demonstrating a level of resilience they hadn't thought possible. A flicker of respect, hesitant but undeniable, began to emerge from some within the pack. They were starting to see her in a new light. 667 words. The second stage of the trial loomed, a stark contrast to the physical challenges Alara had already overcome. This test delved into the very core of her being, demanding she confront the shadows that haunted her spirit, the insecurities that whispered doubts in her ear. It was a trial designed to break her, to expose her perceived weaknesses to the unforgiving gaze of the pack. This time, there would be no physical exertion, no tangible opponent. Her battleground was the landscape of her own mind, and her adversary was herself. Alara stood before a circle of elders, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The air crackled with an unspoken tension, a collective anticipation of her potential failure. She closed her eyes, focusing on Kale's unwavering belief in her, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. He had prepared her for this, guiding her through exercises of self-reflection, helping her to identify the roots of her deepest fears. But now, she was alone. The elders began to speak, their voices soft yet penetrating, echoing the cruel taunts and pitying whispers she had endured since the doctor's pronouncement. They spoke of her barrenness, her inability to fulfill her primary purpose as a werewolf woman. They questioned her worth, her right to even dream of a future with Kale. Each word was a carefully crafted arrow, aimed at the heart of her self-esteem. Alara felt the familiar sting of tears, the suffocating weight of despair threatening to engulf her. She relived the moment the doctor had shattered her hopes, the looks of disappointment on the faces of her family, the triumphant smirks of her rivals. The pain was almost unbearable, a suffocating blanket of inadequacy. But then, she remembered Kale's words, "Your worth is not defined by what you can produce, but by who you are." He had seen past her perceived flaws, recognizing the strength and resilience that lay dormant within her. He had shown her that true strength was not about physical prowess, but about the ability to overcome adversity, to rise above the expectations of others. With newfound resolve, Alara opened her eyes, meeting the gaze of the elders with unwavering determination. She spoke of her pain, her fears, but also of her unwavering belief in herself. She acknowledged her limitations, but refused to let them define her. She declared her intention to serve the pack with all her heart, regardless of her ability to bear children. As she spoke, a palpable shift occurred in the atmosphere. The elders, initially skeptical, began to soften, their faces reflecting a grudging respect. They witnessed her vulnerability, her willingness to confront her deepest fears, and they recognized the true strength that lay within her. Alara's breakthrough was not a sudden transformation, but a gradual awakening. She realized that her worth was not contingent upon meeting the expectations of others, but on embracing her own unique qualities. She found peace in accepting herself, flaws and all. The pack watched in awe as Alara emerged from the trial, her spirit unbowed, her eyes shining with newfound confidence. Their initial skepticism began to dissipate, replaced by a growing admiration for her courage and resilience. They had witnessed her confront her demons and emerge stronger, proving that true strength lies not in physical might, but in the unwavering spirit. Kale watched with pride, knowing that she had passed the truest test of all, earning not only his respect, but the respect of the entire pack. The air seemed to hum with a newfound energy, a collective understanding that the future of the pack was in capable hands. The whispers began to change, no longer filled with scorn, but with admiration and hope. Alara had proven them wrong, not by conforming to their expectations, but by defying them and embracing her true self. 669. The final stage of the trial was announced, a trial meant to test Alara's courage and, perhaps more importantly, her loyalty. It was designed to reveal the true nature of her heart, to see if she possessed the qualities needed not just to be a mate to the Alpha heir, but a leader to the pack. The air crackled with anticipation, a mixture of excitement and apprehension hanging heavy over the gathered wolves. No one truly knew what to expect, the specifics of this final test shrouded in secrecy. Then came the accusation. A young member of the pack, barely a man, was accused of stealing from the Alpha's personal stores. The evidence seemed damning. Witnesses claimed to have seen him near the stores late at night, and a small amount of the missing goods was found hidden in his dwelling. The Alpha, Kale's father, a stern and unyielding leader, was quick to condemn the young man. He declared him guilty without a proper investigation, his judgment swift and harsh. The pack murmured in agreement, fearful of questioning their Alpha's decision. But Alara saw something different. She looked into the young man's eyes and saw not guilt, but fear and desperation. She sensed a deep injustice, a wrong that needed righting. Ignoring the warning glances from those around her, she stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. She bravely intervened, defying the Alpha's judgment and demanding a fair investigation. The Alpha's reaction was immediate and explosive. His face contorted with rage, his eyes blazing with fury. He saw Alara's actions as a direct challenge to his authority, a blatant disrespect for the traditions of the pack. How dare this barren woman, this outsider, question his judgment? He roared at her, accusing her of siding with a thief and undermining his leadership. The pack gasped, shocked by Alara's audacity and the Alpha's furious response. Kale, watching from the sidelines, felt his heart clench. He knew he had to act. He stepped forward, placing himself beside Alara, a silent declaration of his support. He calmly but firmly defended her actions, siding with her against his own father. He argued that justice demanded a thorough investigation, and that condemning the young man without proof was a grave error. This act created a deep rift between father and son. The Alpha felt betrayed by Kale's defiance, seeing it as a sign of weakness and a rejection of his teachings. He accused Kale of being blinded by his feelings for Alara, of allowing his emotions to cloud his judgment. The Alpha, his face now a mask of cold fury, declared that the only way to resolve the situation, to prove the young man's guilt or innocence, and to restore order to the pack, was through a traditional trial by combat. The pack gasped once more. The stakes were now impossibly high. The Alpha decreed that Alara, having challenged his judgment, would be the one to fight on behalf of the accused. If she won, the young man would be declared innocent. If she lost, he would face the Alpha's judgment, and Alara would face the consequences of her defiance. The trial by combat would begin at dawn. The fate of the young man, and perhaps Alara's own, was now sealed. The Alpha turned and stalked away, leaving Kale and Alara to face the stunned silence of the pack. 667. The stakes were impossibly high. Alara's life, which had only recently begun to feel truly her own, hung precariously in the balance. So too did the fate of the accused pack member, a young woman named Lyra who had always been kind to Alara, offering smiles, when others offered scorn. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Alara, heavy and suffocating. She had never been a fighter, never relished the thought of physical conflict. Her strengths lay in compassion, in understanding, in the quiet power of her spirit. But now, all of that seemed insignificant in the face of the brutal reality before her. Alara was reluctant, deeply reluctant, to engage in this trial by combat. The idea of inflicting harm on another being, especially a member of her own pack, went against everything she believed in. She yearned for a different solution, a peaceful resolution where truth and justice could prevail without bloodshed. She envisioned herself speaking to the pack, appealing to their reason and empathy, hoping to sway them to see the injustice of the accusation against Lyra. She dreamt of a world where disagreements were resolved through dialogue, not through violence. However, the Alpha remained resolute, unyielding in his insistence on tradition. To him, the trial by combat was not merely a test of strength, but a symbol of order, a way to maintain control and respect for the ancient ways of the pack. He argued that deviating from this established practice would invite chaos and undermine his authority. His words echoed with the weight of generations, a history steeped in blood and battle. Alara knew that challenging him directly would be futile, perhaps even dangerous. In the shadows, Kale, defying his father's decree, began to secretly train Alara. He understood her reluctance, her aversion to violence, but he also recognized the necessity of preparing her for the inevitable. He couldn't openly oppose his father, not yet, but he could equip Alara with the skills she needed to survive. He taught her essential fighting techniques, emphasizing agility, strategy, and the importance of using her opponent's aggression against them. He showed her how to find strength within herself, to harness the power of her spirit and channel it into physical prowess. He drilled her relentlessly, pushing her limits and honing her instincts. The day of the combat dawned, heavy with anticipation and dread. A palpable tension hung in the air as the entire pack gathered to witness the event. The atmosphere was thick with a mixture of excitement, apprehension, and morbid curiosity. Alara could feel the weight of their gazes upon her, some filled with hope, others with skepticism, and still others with outright hostility. The arena was a circle of packed earth, stained with the memories of past battles, a stark reminder of the violence that lay ahead. The air crackled with unspoken words, with the echoes of ancient rituals and forgotten sacrifices. The sun beat down mercilessly, casting long, ominous shadows across the faces of the assembled werewolves. Alara stepped into the arena, her heart pounding in her chest, her senses heightened. She faced her opponent, a hulking warrior named Bram, known for his brute strength and ruthless fighting style. He was a formidable adversary, a veteran of countless battles, and the odds were undeniably stacked against her. 666 words. The beginning of the fight, describe the initial stages of the combat. Alara is outmatched in strength and experience, but she relies on her agility and intelligence. The crowd roared, a cacophony of sound that threatened to deafen Alara. She stood in the center of the arena, the sand gritty beneath her bare feet. Her opponent, a seasoned warrior named Bram, towered over her, muscles bulging, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. He was known for his brute strength and relentless attacks, and the pack had placed their bets accordingly. Alara knew she was at a disadvantage. She lacked Bram's raw power and years of combat experience. But she possessed a cunning that he seemed to underestimate. Alara's resilience. Alara endures a series of blows, refusing to give up. Her resilience inspires some members of the pack. Bram charged, a blur of motion, his axe whistling through the air. Alara dodged, the wind of the blade ruffling her hair. He was fast, faster than she had anticipated. The force of his attack sent tremors through the ground. She blocked a blow with her makeshift shield, the impact jarring her arm. Bram pressed his advantage, raining down a series of attacks. Alara stumbled, dodging and weaving, but unable to mount a proper defense. Each block sent pain searing through her limbs. The crowd jeered, their voices laced with disappointment. Some even called for her to yield. But Alara refused. She would not give them the satisfaction. She grit her teeth, focusing on Bram's movements, searching for a weakness. Kale's concern. Kale watches the fight with growing concern. He fears that Alara is pushing herself too far. From his vantage point, Kale watched with growing unease. He had trained Alara, teaching her everything he knew, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had sent her to her doom. Bram was relentless, showing no mercy. He saw the exhaustion etched on Alara's face, the strain in her movements. He knew she was pushing herself beyond her limits, fueled by a desperate need to prove herself. He feared that she would break. He wanted to intervene, to stop the fight, but he knew that would only undermine her efforts and further solidify the pack's doubts. Alara's strategy. Alara uses her knowledge of the arena to her advantage, setting traps and using her opponent's aggression against them. Alara, despite the pain, began to implement her strategy. She lured Bram towards the edge of the arena, where the sand was looser and uneven. She knew he relied on his momentum and brute force. If she could disrupt his balance, she might have a chance. She feigned weakness, stumbling and gasping for air. Bram, sensing victory, lunged forward, his axe raised high. A turning point occurs when Alara manages to disarm her opponent, gaining a momentary advantage. At the last moment, Alara sidestepped, allowing Bram's momentum to carry him forward. He stumbled on the loose sand, his footing unsteady. Seizing the opportunity, Alara kicked out, striking his wrist. Bram's axe flew from his grasp, clattering to the ground. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath. For the first time, the tide had turned. Ending, Alara stands over her defeated opponent, but she refuses to deliver the final blow. Alara stood over Bram, her chest heaving, her body aching. He lay sprawled on the ground, disarmed and defeated. The crowd was silent, waiting for her to deliver the final blow. The Alpha expected it, the pack demanded it. It was the tradition. But Alara hesitated. She looked at Bram, saw the humiliation in his eyes, the fear of death. She lowered her weapon. "I yield," she declared, her voice ringing through the arena. She would not take his life. That was not the kind of leader she wanted to be. That was not the kind of pack she wanted to build. 667 words. Alara addressed the pack, her voice trembling slightly but filled with a newfound resolve. She spoke not of victory, but of understanding. She pleaded for mercy, not just for the accused, but for the entire pack, trapped in a cycle of violence and judgment. Her words, though simple, carried the weight of her experiences, the pain of her past, and the hope for a better future. She argued that violence was not the answer, that true strength lay not in brute force, but in compassion and empathy. She reminded them that the accused was one of their own, a member of their community, deserving of fairness and justice. She spoke of unity and forgiveness, urging them to break free from the chains of tradition and embrace a new path, a path of understanding and peace. Her voice resonated through the arena, silencing the murmurs and capturing the attention of every werewolf present. The pack was visibly divided. Some were moved by Alara's sincere words, their faces softening with empathy. They saw the truth in her message, the potential for a more harmonious future. Others remained skeptical, their hearts hardened by years of tradition and prejudice. They clung to their beliefs, unwilling to abandon the old ways. Whispers of dissent rippled through the crowd, questioning Alara's motives and challenging her authority. The tension in the arena was palpable, the atmosphere thick with uncertainty. The Alpha watched from his throne, his expression unreadable, his thoughts concealed behind a mask of stoicism. The Alpha, however, remained unmoved. He scowled at Alara's blatant disregard for tradition. He accused her of weakness, of being swayed by sentiment rather than upholding the ancient laws of their people. He saw her plea as a sign of disrespect, a challenge to his authority as the leader of the pack. His voice boomed through the arena, silencing the murmurs and reasserting his dominance. He declared that tradition must be upheld, that justice must be served, and that Alara's actions were a betrayal of everything they stood for. The pack members who were initially moved by Alara's words hesitated, their newfound empathy clashing with their ingrained respect for the Alpha. But then, Kale stepped forward, his presence radiating power and determination. He stood beside Alara, his eyes blazing with unwavering support. He echoed her call for peace and justice, his voice resonating with authority and conviction. He challenged his father's rigid adherence to tradition, arguing that true strength lay not in blindly following the past, but in adapting to the present and building a better future. His words carried weight, his status as the Alpha heir lending credibility to his message. The pack members who had wavered now stood firm, their loyalty shifting towards Kale and Alara. Suddenly, a hush fell over the arena. A lone figure emerged from the crowd, their face pale with fear but their eyes filled with determination. It was a witness, someone who had seen the events unfold and knew the truth about the accused's innocence. The witness stepped forward, their voice trembling as they recounted the events of the crime, revealing the identity of the real culprit. The truth hung heavy in the air, silencing the dissent and exposing the Alpha's hasty judgment. The accused was immediately exonerated, their name cleared and their freedom restored. The real culprit was apprehended and brought to justice, their deceit exposed for all to see. Alara's courage and compassion had saved the day, her unwavering belief in justice prevailing over prejudice and tradition. The pack erupted in cheers, their hearts filled with gratitude and admiration for the woman who had shown them the true meaning of strength. Word count, 667. Word count, 667. The Alpha stood, a statue carved from granite, his gaze sweeping across the assembled pack. Alara watched him, her heart a trapped bird fluttering against her ribs. He had witnessed her defiance, her compassion, her willingness to stand against tradition for what she believed was right. Would he see her as a strength to be embraced, or a weakness to be purged? A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. Kale stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her back, a silent reassurance. His presence was a beacon in the storm of uncertainty that swirled around her. The weight of his faith in her was both a comfort and a burden. She knew his defiance of his father had come at a cost, straining their relationship and dividing the pack. The Alpha's silence stretched, thick and heavy, amplifying the tension. Every eye was on him, waiting for his judgment. He had been a stern, unyielding leader, steeped in tradition and wary of change. Alara had dared to challenge his authority, to question his decisions, and to offer a different path. Now, the fate of her future, and perhaps the future of the pack, hung in the balance. Finally, the Alpha spoke, his voice resonating with an unexpected tremor. He spoke of the ancient ways, of the strength of tradition, but then his words shifted. He acknowledged Alara's courage, her unwavering belief in justice, and her profound impact on the pack. He admitted that he had been blinded by his own rigid adherence to the past, failing to see the value of compassion and understanding. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The Alpha was admitting he was wrong. It was unheard of. He publicly apologized to Alara, his voice laced with sincerity. He apologized for his harsh judgment, for his failure to see her worth, and for the pain he had caused her. He then turned to the exonerated pack member, offering a similar apology, acknowledging the injustice he had suffered. A wave of relief washed over Alara, easing the tension that had gripped her body. She had not expected this. She had braced herself for rejection, for exile, perhaps even for death. But instead, she was witnessing a transformation, a shift in perspective that rippled through the pack. The Alpha then turned to Kale, his gaze softening with a hint of paternal affection. He acknowledged the rift that had formed between them, admitting that he had been too stubborn to see the wisdom in his son's choices. He recognized that Kale's unwavering support for Alara was not a sign of weakness, but a testament to his own strength and vision. With a deep breath, the Alpha extended his blessing to Kale, granting him permission to choose Alara as his mate. He declared that she possessed the qualities of a true leader, the compassion, the courage, and the unwavering commitment to justice that the pack desperately needed. He saw now that she was not a threat to tradition, but a vital force for progress. Kale's eyes met Alara's, filled with an emotion so profound it stole her breath away. He stepped forward, his hand reaching for hers. The moment had arrived. He was about to mark her as his mate, solidifying their bond and securing her place as the future Luna of the pack. A smile touched his lips as he began the ancient incantation. The pack looked on with reverence, finally accepting Alara as one of their own. The preparations for the marking ceremony were elaborate, steeped in tradition and ancient rituals. The entire pack was involved, each member contributing in some way to the solemn occasion. Banners of deep crimson and silver, the pack's colors, adorned the great hall. The air was thick with the scent of burning sage and pine, meant to purify the space and invite the blessings of the moon goddess. A hush fell over the crowd as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the stone floor. Alara, despite the joy that surrounded her, felt a tremor of hesitation. Doubts, like insidious whispers, crept into her mind. Was she truly worthy of Kale, this powerful Alpha heir who had defied tradition to choose her? Could she truly shoulder the responsibilities of being Luna, of guiding and protecting her pack? The weight of expectations, both her own and those of the pack, pressed down on her. She glanced at Kale, his eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight, and saw only unwavering love and belief. Kale, sensing her unease, gently took her hand. His touch was warm and reassuring, a silent promise of strength and support. He led her away from the bustling preparations, to a quiet corner overlooking the moonlit forest. Alara, he said, his voice soft but firm, I chose you not for who you were expected to be, but for who you are. Your kindness, your courage, your unwavering spirit, these are the qualities that make you worthy. Trust in yourself, as I trust in you. His words were a balm to her soul, easing her fears and rekindling her confidence. He reminded her of the trials she had overcome, the prejudice she had faced, and the strength she had shown throughout it all. He reminded her of her inherent goodness, the empathy that made her so uniquely suited to lead. The ritual began as the moon reached its zenith, bathing the great hall in its ethereal glow. Ancient chants, passed down through generations of werewolves, filled the air, weaving a tapestry of sound that resonated deep within their souls. Symbolic gestures, performed by the pack elders, invoked the blessings of the moon goddess, seeking her favor upon the union of Kale and Alara. The energy in the room crackled with anticipation, a palpable sense of connection to the ancient magic that bound them all. As Kale stepped forward to mark Alara, a hush fell over the crowd. He looked at her, his eyes filled with love and reverence, and gently pressed his mark to her skin. A surge of power coursed through Alara's veins, a profound connection to Kale, to the pack, and to the ancient magic that flowed through their blood. The pain was fleeting, replaced by an overwhelming sense of belonging, of purpose, of destiny fulfilled. She felt her own wolf spirit awakening, strengthening, merging with Kale's in a bond that could never be broken. In that moment, Alara understood. She was not just Kale's mate, she was the Luna, the heart of the pack, the protector of her people. She embraced her destiny, ready to lead with compassion, wisdom, and unwavering strength. The pack erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the great hall, celebrating the dawn of a new era. Alara was officially marked as Kale's mate, becoming the Luna of the pack, a beacon of hope for generations to come. The journey ahead would not be easy, but she knew, with Kale by her side, they could face any challenge, together. 667 words. Alara embraced her new role as Luna, the weight of responsibility settling gently upon her shoulders. The initial days were a whirlwind of meetings, introductions, and navigating the intricate social dynamics of the pack. She found herself constantly learning, observing, and strategizing, all while trying to remain true to the values she held dear. Alara was determined to lead not through force or fear, but through compassion and understanding. She envisioned a pack where every member felt valued, respected, and empowered, regardless of their background or perceived weaknesses. One of her first acts as Luna was to establish a council where all voices could be heard, breaking from the tradition of the Alpha and his advisors making all the decisions. She believed that the collective wisdom of the pack was far greater than any individual's, and that true strength lay in unity. This initiative was met with resistance from some of the older members, who were accustomed to the old ways, but Alara persevered, patiently explaining her vision and demonstrating the benefits of inclusivity. Alara also focused on improving the living conditions for the less fortunate members of the pack. She organized community projects to repair homes, provide food and clothing, and ensure that everyone had access to basic necessities. She believed that a strong pack was one where everyone was cared for, and that no one should be left behind. These actions quickly started to change the sentiment of the pack as they saw Alara's dedication to them. However, not everyone welcomed these changes. Some saw Alara as an outsider, someone who didn't understand the traditions and values of the pack. They whispered behind her back, questioning her decisions and plotting ways to undermine her authority. She faced constant opposition from those who clung to the old ways, who feared losing their power and privilege. She had to deal with constant negativity from some of the pack members. Kale remained a steadfast supporter of Alara, standing by her side through every challenge and obstacle. He understood the importance of her vision and was determined to help her achieve it. He used his influence as Alpha to protect her from her enemies and to rally support for her initiatives. Together, they made a formidable team, their love and commitment serving as an inspiration to the pack. He often gave advice to Alara, which she greatly appreciated. Alara's biggest challenge came when a rogue wolf pack threatened their territory, forcing her to lead the defense. Despite her lack of combat experience, she demonstrated courage and strategic thinking, inspiring the pack to fight valiantly. She focused on protecting the vulnerable and ensuring that everyone had a role to play in the defense. Her leadership during the crisis solidified her position as Luna and earned her the respect of even her harshest critics. The attack was repelled. Alara had proven herself to be an exceptional Luna, earning the love and respect of her people. She brought peace, prosperity, and a renewed sense of unity to the pack, proving that true strength lies not in brute force but in compassion, understanding, and unwavering commitment to justice. The pack was starting to resemble the society she wanted it to be. She had come so far from the doctor's declaration. 667. Alara felt a strange fluttering within her, a sensation she initially dismissed as nerves. The pressures of being Luna were immense, and she often found herself second-guessing her decisions, wondering if she was truly living up to the pack's expectations. But the fluttering persisted, growing stronger each day, accompanied by a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in her energy. She found herself craving foods she had previously disliked, and her senses seemed heightened, more attuned to the rhythms of the forest and the emotions of those around her. One morning, as she walked through the village, a young child, barely old enough to speak, reached out and touched her stomach, giggling and saying, "Baby." Alara smiled, thinking the child was simply being playful, but the incident lingered in her mind. Later that day, she consulted with the pack's elder healer, a wise woman with eyes that seemed to see into the very soul. The healer examined Alara, her touch gentle and knowing. A hush fell over the room as the healer looked up, a mixture of awe and joy in her gaze. "Luna," she said softly, "the moon goddess has blessed you. You carry life within you." Alara gasped, her hand flying to her stomach. A wave of disbelief washed over her, followed by an overwhelming surge of joy. Could it be true? After all the years of disappointment, after the doctor's pronouncement that had haunted her for so long, was she truly pregnant? News of Alara's pregnancy spread like wildfire through the pack. The villagers erupted in jubilation, their initial skepticism and scorn replaced by unbridled happiness. They saw Alara's pregnancy as a miracle, a sign of the moon goddess's favor, and a testament to her strength and worthiness as Luna. The women who had once mocked her now showered her with gifts and blessings, their jealousy replaced by genuine affection and respect. Even the doctor who had declared Alara barren was deeply affected by the news. He was filled with remorse, realizing the error of his judgment and the harm his words had caused. He sought Alara out, offering a humble apology and vowing to dedicate his life to serving the pack with greater compassion and understanding. Alara's pregnancy brought a new sense of hope and unity to the pack. They rallied around her, eager to support her and celebrate the impending arrival of the new heir. Kale, her beloved mate, was overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a father. He cherished Alara more than ever, protecting her with unwavering devotion and showering her with love and affection. He spent hours talking to their unborn child, sharing stories of the pack and expressing his hopes for the future. Together, Alara and Kale awaited the arrival of their child, their hearts filled with love, anticipation, and a profound sense of gratitude. They knew that their child would be born into a world filled with challenges, but they were confident that they could raise them to be strong, compassionate, and wise, a true leader of the pack. The laughter of children echoed through the village, a promise of a bright future. Hope bloomed in every heart, and the pack looked forward to the future with joy. 667 words. The birth was not merely an event, it was a dawn. Alara brought forth a child, a son, hale and hearty, destined to inherit the mantle of Alpha. His cries echoed through the pack lands, a symphony of life that banished the lingering shadows of doubt and prejudice. This was more than just a birth, it was the dawn of a new era. The child, named Rowan, possessed eyes that mirrored the silver of the moon and a spirit that shone with the strength of his parents. He was a testament to their love, a living embodiment of their defiance against the norms that once threatened to consume them. Rowan was the future, a promise of a pack that valued compassion above all else. With Rowan's arrival, a new generation of werewolves began to emerge, their hearts untainted by the rigid traditions of the past. They were raised on tales of Alara's courage and Kale's unwavering belief in her, stories that instilled in them a deep sense of empathy and a commitment to justice. This generation would be defined not by bloodline or strength alone, but by the values of love, compassion, and acceptance that Alara had championed. Alara's legacy as Luna was etched into the very fabric of the pack. She was remembered not just as the woman who had been declared barren, but as the woman who had defied expectations, challenged tradition, and brought an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity. Her name became synonymous with hope, a beacon of light in a world often shrouded in darkness. She taught them that true strength lay not in brute force, but in the courage to stand up for what was right, even when faced with overwhelming opposition. Years spun into decades, and Alara and Kale ruled side by side, their love a constant source of strength and inspiration to their people. They governed with wisdom and compassion, always striving to create a pack where every member felt valued and respected. Their reign was marked by an era of unprecedented unity and harmony, a testament to their unwavering commitment to each other and their pack. As they aged, their love only deepened, their bond unbreakable. They watched Rowan grow into a strong and capable leader, ready to take on the responsibilities of Alpha. They knew that he would carry on their legacy, ensuring that the values they had instilled in him would continue to guide the pack for generations to come. They lived a long and fulfilling life, surrounded by the love of their family and the gratitude of their people, a true testament to the power of love and the enduring strength of the human spirit. They proved that love could conquer all, even the most deeply ingrained prejudices. The tale of Alara and Kale became a legend, whispered around campfires and sung in ancient ballads. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail, and that love can blossom in the most unexpected places. It was a story of courage, resilience, and the transformative power of believing in oneself. If you found joy in this narrative, become part of our community by subscribing. Delve into more enthralling chronicles of werewolves, passionate romances, and thrilling adventures. To discover another captivating story, simply click the video displayed on your screen. 667 words.